Oh, yo, what is going on, guys? Sheriff is here, and we're going to talk about chapters 192 and 193 of My Hero Academia. Things are getting crazy. Boy, it's getting lit. It's getting lit. It's crazy. But I'm going to go ahead and jump into these two chapters. So let's go ahead and start talking about it with just kind of like my thoughts of just kind of what happened in chapter 192 and 193. Not really a review. Just kind of want to talk about my thoughts about the chapters. Both really, really good. So much exposition, so much so much is really good about it. So I mean 192 definitely goes back to talk about, kind of like the aftermath of the fight with Endeavor and the high-end Nomu. You've got recovery girl did heal up Endeavor, but because of the damage that happened to his eye, did kind of leave a scar there. So now Endeavor also now has a scar on his face as well. So that's great. So like now like the family history of like having scars on the face is kind of like fulfilled now. But it's definitely a more serious look at like Endeavor, and then kind of like the relationship that's kind of happening now between like Endeavor and his family. And also there's a little bit of stuff in there in the beginning about, his interaction, with Hawks. Cause they are like the top two heroes or whatever. Top two heroes just walking around, just having some fun. Well, not really having fun, but they're just kind of chatting as like Endeavor, is heading back home and everything. And Endeavor, basically tells, Hawks, watch out for yourself. And he's like, oh, I didn't know you were that. I didn't know you cared that much. And he's like, and it's cool, but like the whole meat of it, of this chapter, definitely goes back to like Endeavor returning home and kind of like the tension and the animosity that's kind of still resonating with, with some people in his family, and how like some people are trying to, move on. How his Toridoki's sister and his mom, they're starting to forgive Endeavor, or they've forgiven him already for like, the things he's done. They kind of, his sister's trying to make it like this whole nice little family thing. And I think Toridoki's older brother, Natsu, kind of gets in it with Endeavor. Well, he doesn't really get into it with Endeavor, but he kind of says his he basically gives Endeavor his 2 cents on why he hasn't, forgiven him. But Shoto does note that he's never seen Natsu get that emotional before. So maybe there will be some more things that will happen there with Natsu, and Endeavor trying to, face his, he understands that he has definitely made mistakes, and he's trying to rectify it by like, moving forward. By moving forward, he's kind of like his own way of like atoning for it. He's like, he's like, I am sorry for what I've done. I can't go back and redo it. And he's like, I know that, but all I can do is move forward from it. So it's kind of his way of like atoning for his sins, atoning for like everything that he's kind of done with, involving his family up until this point, which is noble. And he says that he needs to go back and talk to Natsu as well, because he feels like he didn't say the right thing, which that's really cool. And a lot of character progression on Endeavor himself, because he's got a lot to work with. He's the new #1 hero. Everyone is still kind of nervous about it because he barely beat the high-end Nomu. He barely beat him. But there's some people that are like, you still won, and like from listening from the TV, from when Endeavor does show up, does kind of like, it's really inspirational. But he knows he still kind of has a long way to go to really like be that protector and be that, kind of be like, the new, kind of be the new top dog, the new symbol of peace, if you will. Don't know really if Endeavor's aiming for that. I feel like he's aiming for that, but I feel like he's aiming for it in his own way, so to speak. So that's kind of like my thoughts on, on chapter 192. As a whole, which I know I'm getting into the end part of 192, where we go back to Deku, and Deku came back from a whole bunch of training, and he had this crazy dream, which runs into 193 actually, which runs into 193 of Deku kind of falling asleep after he's already, he's trained really hard, and he's like, oh, he has this weird dream where it's kind of like he's like materialized into the dream, but he's not like completely like materialized in the dream, and he sees all the past successors from One for All. So this kind of really harkens back to like the one I made a discussion video a while back, which you guys can go back and go look at it. I'll probably link it at the end of this video so you guys can look at it yourself. And I was kind of like how Deku with the for his One for All quirk kind of had him link to like the past successors in a similar way of that to the Avatar. So if you want to check that video out, you can go to click that at the end of the link, at the end of this video, so you can kind of see my theory on that one, or kind of what I was thinking. But to get more into 193, it's basically the majority of the chapter is a huge exposition on everything, kind of some of the not some of the dealings, but kind of like what was really going on between All for One, when it kind of like when it all got started, and his younger brother, which we know his younger brother is the first inheritor of One for All. So it goes really, really deep as far as like everything that's happening. But some of the biggest things to actually draw from that chapter is that Deku is able to like see, he's kind of able to see like the beginnings of everything, how how the younger brother was, kind of going against the older brother, and, and the older brother was kind of just like manipulating people, which the older brother is All for One. How he's manipulating people to get them to do what they want, and, kind of prying on their weaknesses, and the younger brother's like, no, that's not how you deal with people. That's not how you do this. And, he's kind of like against his brother. And then like it flash forwards like a few years later, and like his brother's kind of like thin and sickly, and evidently his brother's been keeping him held up in there, I guess. And he's still resisting, him, and that's when his brother's about to give him that's when, because his brother was quirkless, and that's when he was going to give him his trait, or he was going to give him a quirk. And that's basically how he gets All for One for All. But just before that happens, the younger brother starts talking to Deku directly, and he's like, "Oh, you can only it seems like you can only handle up to 20% right now." Yada yada yada, and they almost he actually physically touches his hand. But when that happens, Deku wakes up, and his whole dorm room, I guess it's like a dorm, like his dorm room is completely a mess. So evidently, it was like this crazy nightmare, but it was like basically it was like real. Which he talks about it with All Might, and All Might's like, I don't know what you're talking about. When All Might's like, I kind of have an idea, but I want to make sure like what I'm thinking about is right, and like super All Might fashion. Every time Deku's ever come to him to like some advice, he's like, could it be what I think it is? He's like, nah, but like, he's like, what, we're gonna work through it, we're gonna figure it out together, it's no biggie, no big deal. But the coolest thing was that Deku did hit All Might's successor, the person that had, One for All. before All Might, and he was like, she's really pretty. He was like, yeah, I know. He was like, yeah, she was. Yeah, she was. So like, it was kind of cool because Deku could see some of the successors. Some of them were blurred out. He says there was 2 people that we couldn't see, and we were missing one because we saw some of the previous successors, and he said all of them make 8. He said all of them, including me, makes 8, but I know that I'm the 9th successor. So he's like, okay, you know, which I think the 9th is the first one, but we'll figure that out. But we know that one is definitely missing. So after that, it really just goes into him going back to school and stuff. Deku's upgraded his costume, I guess specifically his gloves again, so that was cool to hear. Everyone's kind of like reformatted or refitted their outfits for winter, because they are in the middle of winter right now. So they're almost actually towards the end of the school year if they're in winter. The end of the year, and then they'll be jumping into the new year. So I wonder if there's gonna be like a Christmas chapter. But anyway, it's really it was really like a lot of fun to read. They're actually going to have a mock practice battle against Class B. So that's going to be really, really interesting to see too. Really good chapter. A lot of theories probably about how Deku's going to interact with these guys are going to be popping up all over the internet. They probably already have. So I want to hear you guys' theories about Deku being able to interact with these with some of the past thoughts and the past, like, you know, feelings from the other successors. Let me know what you guys think about that, and we'll start a discussion down below in the comment section as always. But if you guys did totally like this video, it's probably a little bit more rambly than I would have had. A lot to talk about. These chapters were kind of packed, and they flowed really nicely one into like the other, so I felt like it was best to talk about these 2 chapters together. So hopefully you guys did enjoy it, and if you did, click the like button. If you do like these kinds of videos, definitely go ahead and subscribe, because I love My Hero Academia, love doing stuff like this. And I will catch you guys later in the next one. Peace.